Black Lives Matter. Please do everything in your means to help secure justice for George Floyd and countless black people who have been oppressed by systemic racism and social injustice, whether that means joining in peaceful protests or donating to help the Black Lives Matter cause.
Hey, and welcome to Game Talk. I'm your host, Ahmed Mion. Today joined by Connor
Hey guys.
and Mike.
Hello.
And E3 is dead and gone, at least for this year, most likely forever. But in the spirit of E3 season, every year this podcast has been on, we've been doing E3 predictions around this time of year. Considering E3 is in June, we're in late May right now. And sort of the spiritual successor to E3, the Summer Game Fest, orchestrated by Jeff Keighley, is happening not over just June, but over the course of I think 3 or 4 months, and that's intended to be like a sort of extended replacement for E3. So I was just kind of thinking it could be fun to maybe throw some guesses out there as to what we might see during the Summer Game Fest period, and maybe see how it stacks up to E3. And I think the most obvious one that I'm going to get out of the way, obviously, we're probably going to get events for PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X that are part of this larger Summer Game Fest umbrella. But as for what is exactly revealed there, I'm very excited to find out. I think the game reveals are pretty imminent. And we'll get that news here soon. But I don't know, what do you guys want to see from Summer Games Fest, and what do you think we'll see?
I suspect a lot of direct style stuff, and I like that a lot. I've always enjoyed a Nintendo Direct more than an actual E3 showcase. I know I'm the odd one out there, but
yeah. So this thing is probably going to be like a series of coordinated directs.
Yeah, and I'm very excited for that because it just cuts the nonsense in my opinion, because the nonsense bores me to tears.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited for that. But as far as game announcements, I'm just gonna say Spider-Man 2. I think we're gonna get an announcement for.
Yeah, I see it.
I think we've talked about this before, but I still feel like it's a little early for Spider-Man 2. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I see Horizon 2 as being much more likely, and there's rumors going around that Insomniac's got more than one team, and I've seen the sentiment over and over again that Ratchet and Clank, a new Ratchet and Clank for launch of PS5 is likely. I don't know how valid that is, but I've been hearing that a lot.
That would surprise me after the reboot, but people didn't love the reboot, did they?
I really
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Because the first game was a lot really dated in terms of mechanics, so it really did need a remake.
And plus, it was just a remake of the first game. This would be an ostensibly brand new Ratchet and Clank game, which we haven't gotten since the PlayStation 3 era, I believe. Which I don't know. I wonder how far removed we are from the era of mascot platformers being popular, and we are seeing a bit of a resurgence, and maybe this would be a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would love a new Ratchet and Clank game. I mean, I wouldn't buy a PS5 for it, but I would be very excited.
But yeah, Ratchet and Clank, I could see Horizon 2 being a launch title. Obviously, Blue Point's Demon's Souls, that's all but confirmed at this point.
Is it really?
Jason Schreier has heavily hinted at it in numerous occasions, but of course, nothing's set in stone until it's revealed. And, there's rumors, pretty credible rumors, again, by Jason Schreier saying that the PlayStation 5 games reveal is imminent, as in happening next week, June 3rd, which is very, very imminent. So much so that it's surprising to me that Sony hasn't said anything yet. It's a little unorthodox for them, I think.
So we may well know whether or not our predictions are true very soon.
Yes, very much so. And I think we'll also get at this presentation on June 3rd, Sony's response to Microsoft's smart delivery, because I think smart delivery is a very smart thing, especially for the early days of a console, right? Like when cross-gen's very prevalent. I think something like that is definitely needed on PlayStation 5, so you don't have to buy the same game twice like you did from PS3 to PS4.
I
And
agree.
I think that's expected at this point, and if it's not there, that'll be extremely disappointing. So I think we'll definitely see something like that. And I would like to see the box as well, but I feel like that's almost pushing it.
Yeah, I definitely think that's pushing it.
But Microsoft showed off their box, so I feel like I feel like it's time. I feel like
Yeah, but Microsoft's box looks cool. Like I've never seen a PlayStation that I think looks cool.
Oh, really? You don't think the PS4 looks cool?
Nah.
Oh, the
not
PS4
really.
looks amazing.
Yeah, I thought that was the best designed console of the gen. Not the
Oh,
Pro,
really?
but the original, the diamond
The,
shaped
the
one.
Pro looks really dumb.
Yeah, I don't
the
like the
original
Pro.
looks okay.
The
my
Pro looks
opinion.
like a sandwich, honestly.
Yeah, I hate the look of the Pro. But I don't know, just judging by what the DualSense looks like, I feel like if that's any indication, this console's going to be a looker.
If you say so. I don't think the DualSense looks that good. I think it looks like a good controller. I don't think it looks cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the DualSense. I
I
can't
think it
wait to
looks
get my hands on
extremely
one.
comfortable. I mean, it's still
Yeah.
not going to top the Steam controller for comfort, but
Well, you can't say that until you hold one.
well,
So,
I might be able to.
but so yeah, that's PlayStation in a nutshell. We know Xbox is having several events, and I'm guessing those events will fall under the Summer Games Fest slate of games as well. And I'm assuming we're gonna get the Xbox Series X launch lineup soon. And we know Halo is a thing, but do we have any out there predictions, like Banjo-Kazooie, for instance?
No, there's no
Oh.
way.
There's no way.
Yeah, unfortunately, Rare it seems like they've got their hands full with Sea of Thieves. That's sort of their bread and butter now.
Yeah,
heard it
I
became a
would
good
predict a
game.
massive Sea of Thieves update probably with next gen.
Yeah, which
Uh,
come on, I maybe Rare has another team secretly working on Banjo. I'll never let that dream die.
Nah, that dream is as good as dead. Yeah, I think Halo is going to be the front runner. I just don't even know what Microsoft has to work with, honestly, because we
I
just
mean,
had Gears of War 5, so
I
there's not
think
going to be another one ready
what
for
we're going to
next gen.
see potentially is a bunch of new IPs, which is exciting because
That's super exciting. Yeah.
like what
'cause their
else
old
is there
IPs
really?
suck.
Of course, maybe we'd see a Forza on next gen. I think that's pretty standard.
Yeah, that's almost guaranteed. I don't know if it'll be launched, but we'll get one
But
early.
Microsoft does have a bevy of studios, and of course there's Hellblade 2.
Yeah, and
But I
I'm
don't know if
super
that'll be
excited
ready
that.
for launch. But yeah, so Microsoft's a big question too. But I kind of wanted to think about Switch. The Switch is in an interesting position. Nintendo, particularly, is in an interesting position right now, right? Because their two biggest competitors are gearing up for the launch of a new console. What is Nintendo going to do to compete? And granted, they're not direct competitors, right? They kind of have their own audience, but I feel like something has to be done to sort of draw some attention onto themselves, right?
I mean, my guess is that they're gonna release a bunch of gonna release the Mario remakes.
And that is a big deal, but like, is it like new console level?
I've seen a lot of predictions of Breath of the Wild 2 coming this year, which
I just don't see it. I would love.
it's
it
been
too.
plenty of time. I mean, Breath of the Wild was early 2017. It's been plenty of time. I mean, Majora's Mask was made in a year,
Yeah,
and this is the Majora's Mask of Breath of the Wild. So
yeah, those are really good points. Yeah, I guess we could see it. Just feels, and that would be like a new console level announcement. I think.
I would be far more hyped for a Breath of the Wild sequel than the PS5 or the Xbox Series X.
That would be a big announcement indeed. Do we think like there have been rumors circulating about like a Switch Pro for like I think a couple years now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
at
don't
this
know if
point-
it exists,
Yeah.
but like I feel like now would be a good time to announce it, even if it's not coming out this year. Maybe launch early next year or something like that.
I just don't see a Switch Pro happening at all.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards it not having it at all, but like it's just come up so much, and like the Switch Lite ended up being a thing, and that was also rumored.
The Switch Lite seemed like
point
an
for a while.
obvious thing to do, though, to me.
It
like,
did.
But also, like, I feel like, what's the point? I mean, like, the whole point of the Switch is a console handheld hybrid. Why turn that into just a handheld? You know, that immediately cuts off like the functionality of a lot of games too. The games that rely on Joy-Con gimmicks, right?
Yeah, but you're saying this about the company that made a 2DS.
That's a fair counter. Yep.
So, just
Well, the thing is, 3DS. Did anyone really ask for 3D? You know, like 3D was just kind of like a gimmick. But like,
I mean, I
feel like
liked
the
it.
Joy-Con functionality is a lot more functional and like useful. I don't know.
I certainly liked having 3D. I thought it was neat.
It actually kind of hurt my eyes. I remember like I most of the time played with the 3D off. It made me like a little. I was like a little cross-eyed whenever I played it. To be honest, it felt weird.
I had no such issues.
But
I
then
really
again,
liked it.
I did have the original 3DS, and from what I seem to remember from my hands-on time with like the newer models, like that problem wasn't there. So maybe that was a problem with the original or something.
The new 3DS fixed the thing where you had to be looking straight on at the console.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was pretty much the same.
Yeah, maybe my head like just wasn't in the right position or something.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But I don't know. I think we have I don't know. I don't see a Switch Pro happening. I could see a new Nintendo Switch happening, which like sort of like the new 3DS, where like it's like a super small upgrade that is totally insignificant, honestly.
And they've already done that once with the Switch, right? They've released kind of like a newer model with a bigger battery life, but didn't call it anything new.
Yeah, no, it was the exact same thing. Just yeah.
Yeah. And I think another thing that bears mentioning, apparently, like a Japanese magazine or something came out and said that in early June, there's going to be like an announcement from Sega that was like, quote, on the level of like the PS5 reveal when it was first announced. I'm just like, is Sega about to announce a new console?
I don't think so.
Like,
But
what could
Sega's
that
about to
possibly
introduce
be?
the Genesis 2.
Yeah, and I'm like, what could that possibly be? He's
Sega
insinuating it's like console related. At least
Sega
that's what I
has
think.
recently announced that they're spending more time on Sonic games. They've recently said that they intend to actually start finishing them. So
I mean, I'll believe that when I see it. To be quite
yeah,
honest.
but I bet that the new announcement is a new Sonic game that actually looks decent, because that would surprise me far more than a good PS5 trailer.
See, but I feel like you're in the minority, Connor. Like most people are very ready and hyped for next gen consoles. I feel like
Oh yeah,
Like-
I'm hyped. I would be far more surprised to see a Sonic game that
Surprised?
looks good, though. Yes.
yeah, but I think I don't know. Just judging, I'm trying to find the article right now, but for some reason I can't. But I just remember reading it. The vibe I got was just like, is he about to announce?
There's no way Sega has the bankroll to announce a new console.
I know,
now.
right? Or maybe like something like wild, like maybe they get acquired by Microsoft or something. You know?
Oh my god, that'd be a nightmare.
I mean, Phil Spencer has been very vocal about like wanting to have a more international flavored like Xbox Global Game Studio portfolio. So
Buying
Who knows-
Sega would be such a poor decision, though. Like,
who knows
oh,
what
the
this
problem
could
is
be.
that your mascots aren't interesting. Let's buy mascots that have terrible games. Like,
But like, what a world we would live in if like we had a surprise next gen console, right? Like
Yeah,
Sega
that'd
just
be
entered
insane.
the ring with like a Dreamcast 2 to compete with like PS5 and Xbox Series X and Switch.
I'd buy it just because it would become a collector's item.
Yeah.
Like, because so few people would.
Yeah. But yeah, that's another sort of surprising announcement I'm looking forward to. Like, I have no earthly clue, like, in a sane, reasonable world, what that announcement could be.
Yeah, that's wild.
But yeah, aside from that, I do hope this summer we'll get like a big blowout for Elden Ring, which is quite possibly my most anticipated game I have right now, like out of any video game I can think of.
That would really excite me. I keep
Yeah.
forgetting about Elden Ring and like remembering it every couple months.
Yeah, I mean they've been
'Cause there's
very
no news
silent
that-
on it. Yeah,
yeah.
they've just kind of announced it at I think the Game Awards or something, like maybe last year or the year before, and like
I think it was
that's
the year
it.
before.
Yeah, nothing else. So like Elden Ring is quite obviously at this point a next generation title.
Oh yeah,
But
could
yeah,
be
like
cross generation, but
could be. But side note, like I really don't like when developers and publishers do this. Like I want a 6 month heads up before a game comes out at the most, right? Like they announced Elden Ring, 2 years ago, and still no sign of it. And like Bethesda with Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, it's just like,
see, I have mixed feelings about it because this is kind of tangential, but like as an indie game developer, I feel like I need to announce a game the moment I plan on finishing it and start building hype around it.
yes,
And like
yeah,
that's
that
the
case is
right
different
call to make.
for sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, like those publishers also want to be generating hype as long as possible, I feel like. But I guess indie games typically like do weekly updates or monthly updates and keep you informed the entire time and just kind of handle things differently.
Yeah. But like some announcement, it's just like, why did Bethesda have to announce Elder Scrolls 6? It's just like,
Yeah, I don't know. Like obviously they were gonna make it, right? Nobody
Yeah.
thought that Skyrim was the last Elder Scrolls.
and it's a little silly because they weren't even working on it. They're working on Starfield right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it was kind
anyway,
of a dumb announcement because it was a non-announcement.
They just
essentially.
wanted the hype at the moment. I
Yeah.
think they just wanted a really nice press conference.
And they didn't really get that, in my opinion.
I'm trying to remember. That was the one where they first showed Fallout 76, I think. I believe that's the one where they showed like a bunch of games. And Fallout 76 was like the main one, but then they announced like Starfield and Elder Scrolls as well.
Yeah, it was a bad. Nobody wanted Fallout 76. Everybody wanted. It's like they knew that nobody was going to care about Fallout 76, and so they had to
They
announce.
tacked on, more exciting things.
Yeah,
Which, by the way, I think Fallout 76 is like free to play now. And it's
I
still
don't-
It was free to play for like a weekend.
okay. How's that game doing? Does anyone know?
I went to play and it's still a little buggy, but you know what? Wastelanders actually made it a game.
Yeah. And you're like our main Fallout guy, so what do you think of it right now? I guess. Are there NPCs yet?
There are NPCs. I talked to the NPCs after walking my way out of Morgantown because that's the last thing I did in Fallout 76.
Yeah.
And I went to do the first mission and the game got stuck in an infinite loading screen. So
Mhm.
it's still not perfect,
Not perfect.
but at least
that's
it's
one-
better.
One way of putting it. I guess, yeah, that's true.
I still have zero desire of playing it.
Which is a shame, right? Because we're all West Virginians here. Like, we would have loved for this game to be good, but in no universe am I touching that game unless something drastic happens to it.
I absolutely like. You guys know I don't love Fallout, but I absolutely would have put up with a Fallout game to enjoy a West Virginia game.
Yeah. And we're never gonna get one again. That was our one shot.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll see.
any other like out there predictions for Summer Games Fest? It's really kind of hard to tell at this point, but like we know some things are definitely happening, but like who knows how this thing will shake out and what Jeff Keighley will make of it. I think we'll have a better idea for next year, but anything else to say for now?
I feel like somewhere in there we're gonna get a feature on Spelunky 2. That's not really an out there prediction because that game's been in the works for a couple years now, and Derek Yu's been pretty vocal about like where it is and when it's gonna get done. But I think I imagine that'll probably be in a Microsoft conference because that was originally Spelunky HD was originally an Xbox Live Arcade exclusive.
Yeah.
So I could really see that happening. Epic
Any-
Games is probably gonna announce something.
Fortnite
They're-
related or new?
They're probably just gonna do some sort of like their store. They're gonna try to do a showcase or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe announce new community features and stuff.
Which incidentally, Civilization 6 is free on the Epic Game Store.
It is not anymore.
Oh, I think today's the last day, right?
Yesterday was the last day. I don't
Uh,
know if I managed.
okay.
Did I grab it? I think I did. Because
Yeah,
the Borderlands, the Handsome Collection is free now, I believe.
I see. Okay, yeah, yeah. I was pretty shocked to hear about that. I think that's a pretty big get.
Now,
Yeah.
speaking, I'm going to speak a little bit about Borderlands later because I've been playing through 3 and.
Is that why you're? Yeah.
Uh,
Oh yeah, I managed to grab Civ 6. Yeah, I'm probably gonna grab the Handsome Collection, even though I consider Borderlands 2 totally unplayable unless you mute it at this point.
no, Borderlands 2 is great.
See, I
Handsome
think-
Jack is an excellent villain.
Handsome
Or
Jack's
the humor in
excellent
Borderlands
villain.
2 aged like milk, though.
Yeah, I feel like we're in the minority here, Connor, but like I think I agree with you. Like I just have no interest in Borderlands anymore. I feel like that's a relic of the 2010s at this point.
I think it's a super
Early 2010s.
This may not be the most popular opinion, but I actually think that like the dopamine release, the Skinner box of Borderlands is super good because I remember like spending all my money on the gambling in the
Oh yeah, no, I think that's a pretty common sentiment. Yeah.
like all of that's super good. I had a super good time, and Handsome Jack I stand by to this day as a fantastically written villain. It's just every other character is unbearable. Like the humor is so terrible. It's all memes that weren't like somehow they managed to get the game out while that humor was still relevant.
Yeah,
And
I
I think
think-
that's amazing. And playing Borderlands 2 on release, because I don't want to take a dump on these writers because they did a great job in my opinion. If you played it the year it came out, because I loved this game. I loved everything about it the first time I played it. But
yeah, I
like,
remember at the time I was pretty into it,
but 2 or
yeah.
3 years later, I went back and tried to play it, and I couldn't even bear to look at it. And
I still maintain that the best Borderlands game is Tales from the Borderlands by Telltale.
I'll disagree. It's the pre-sequel.
I
I
actually never
disagree.
played
It's Borderlands
pre-sequel.
2.
No, Borderlands 2 is the best one. The pre-sequel is not very good.
The pre-sequel's absolute garbage.
Yeah.
Like I'll talk about Borderlands after I go on my spiel about dialogue and story decisions.
So yeah, I think that's a good transition. Mike, you mentioned you wanted to talk about dialogue this week. So what do you have in mind?
So first, let me preface this with I was scrolling through PC Gamer's feed, and they linked to an article from 2015 that was about like why the Mass Effect fandom is so crazy. And I love Mass Effect, don't get me wrong, but
Are they
There are
crazy though?
very-
I've never heard of that.
no, it was someone like not that they're crazy, that they're like a unique fan base. Given this was before Andromeda released and everyone had a soul, so take it with a grain of salt. But it kind of praised Mass Effect as a series that had super good writing when you look at it, and you look at a lot of games, they'll give you a morality system, they'll give you dialogue, and in the end, it doesn't matter. There's no long-reaching consequences for what you do as a character or what you say in a lot of games.
See, that's so tough though. Like, how can you make there be like in the end? This is a game, right? So it's going to
Yeah.
have a set amount of possible ways it can shake out. Like, no one's made a truly dynamic slash what's the word? But I guess what I'm trying to get across is like there's only so many ways a game can go, and to make it actually feel like to the player that like something they do will like directly shape the impact of the game. I feel like that's a very tough thing to do, and I don't think most games do it. Even games that are like famous for supposedly doing it, like Mass Effect, because we know how that
It's
ended.
super
No, like-
difficult to do it.
The
But
Tales
at the
games
same
don't
time-
really do it either, do they?
They do not at all.
No, they don't.
They're
And-
just as guilty. In my
Actually, the
eyes.
Tales games are a little worse within this regard because there's only one way those games end, right? Like the destination's always the same. It's just the journey that differs when you play those games.
And I think it's tough, like, yeah, because you either have unlimited choice, but a lot of your choices make really small impacts, or you have a couple of fixed choices, and those choices make a big impact, but like, you only had like 2 options or something, So like you look at a game like a game is open-ended and arguably with good stories, like Dwarf Fortress, where like, every single thing you do is a choice that you're
Yeah.
making. But then you look at something like Mass Effect and like, yeah, they're trying to tell a story that
Yeah,
like someone else wrote, and I really don't think that those mesh super well. Like the
exactly. Yeah.
super authorial stories that games like to tell a lot of the time don't mesh super well with these choices, which is why like I as a game designer don't really care to give the player a lot of like I like to give a lot of choice mechanically because that's always super interesting, but narratively it just doesn't always work super well.
Yes. And I recalled the word I was trying to think of before, emergent. There's no such thing as emergent storytelling yet in a game, I don't
Right.
think. But like I do think it's possible. We
Actually,
might not.
that's not totally true.
Yeah.
Emergent storytelling is a thing in the MMO space, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, based on how the community handles things, and this is like not, this is not a single player thing, but like the story literally hasn't been made yet, and it's made by people based on what the players of this MMO have done, and I think that that's super cool, even though I'm not like
Yeah.
much of an MMO player these days.
Yeah, but like when you try to integrate that sort of thing with like a single player game like Mass Effect, can it be done? I don't know. Like
It would, I mean, the tech.
it just
It's one
it
of
would
those things.
take
I
a
want to
it
say
would
20
take
years from now, yeah,
a
because
combination
it's
of, advanced technology obviously, but also really really good writers to make something like that work.
I,
Like,
it would take AI, right? Like it would
Uh
essentially take a dungeon
yeah,
master,
I guess
like
like
taking a
some
page out of
sort of
D&D, like
AI/machine learning combined
like
with writers.
because that's like the golden project, right? That people like games AI would really love to have is like the AI dungeon master from Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons. Because Dungeons and Dragons is absolutely that's the entire game is emergent
Right.
storytelling.
Yes. That's the end goal here.
Yeah, and like once that exists, games will look like games will look nothing like they do now once we have that because you can both play story-based games and have totally different experiences.
Yeah. But that's a hypothetical future, which I hope comes true. But
I mean, I
I
imagine it will within our lifetimes. I think that sort of tech will be possible.
yeah.
I like to be surprised by consequences, and Mass Effect never really surprised me with consequences since even at the end of by the end of the games, it didn't matter whether you're Paragon or Renegade. The
See,
Paragon or Renegade existed in that decision only and didn't carry over later.
so the
Where
thing
like a game like The Witcher, you make a decision and 3 hours later suddenly something goes terribly wrong, and then 3 hours further because of that decision, you can't do something.
I do hear that The Witcher does it best out of any game, but I haven't
It
played
did it.
enough of The Witcher to verify that. But
You
that's
had
what I
to
hear.
think about your decisions, or you could just think of the way the designers decided the decision would be right.
Yeah, but like with Mass Effect, like I think part of the outrage that ultimately happened with that game was that I think like BioWare really kind of led us on to believe that yes, our Paragon and Renegade choices would carry across games and ultimately shape the story, but as we know, like it ended up just being a very situational type thing. And yes, like we'd have characters across games, like say, for example, spoilers, I guess, for Mass Effect, but the suicide mission in Mass Effect 2, based off like whoever dies in that, they're not in Mass Effect 3, and that's really cool. But like the overall story is unchanged.
Yeah. Everyone feels like an accessory to the plot.
But like
And
it, but
I feel
that's the
like
thing though. It's like not a bad thing though. Like I
yeah.
feel like that it's still a nice to have that much dynamism in your story. Like you can't get that in any other medium. You can't get that in movies or books. You're just experiencing the story as it was laid out brick by brick. At least with games, there's a little flexibility, even if the start and end point are rock solid and unchanging.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just kind of got salty at that article. I don't know why. Maybe because of its age and the fact that it didn't really age well after Andromeda released and the entire Mass Effect fan base lost their very soul.
So were they criticizing the Mass Effect fan base for their response to the end of 3? Or
No, they were. It was more along the lines of like representation in Mass Effect, and me and my sister had a lengthy dialogue about it because it's representation's great. Mass Effects, it feels like it's just there. Like
I
it's
don't
just
know if
kind of a factor that it's there. Whereas
so,
games
but
like
how do you mean though? There's like entire other alien cultures,
I'm
and
talking about like
they're
human
like super fleshed
representation.
out. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, like human representation, like sexualities and skin colors. It's there. It's not like it's super subtle, and at the same time, choosing to go into like a different relationship other than like not a heterosexual relationship versus a homosexual relationship, the dialogue's still the same
Yeah.
as
Well, I think
far as I remember.
those kind of things in games have always kind of been like fluff, kind of like
Yeah, it
accessories that haven't
felt like
really been paid
fluff.
attention to. Like I
It
don't
just
think
felt like
any
it didn't
game's
need the
done that
praise.
in depth, you know?
Yeah, I feel like it didn't need all the praise that people have hamped on it for that. Praise its world design because Mass Effect has a spectacular world design. Just don't praise that little bit
Yeah, I mean,
because
I can definitely back that up.
it's
I remember like
fluff.
reading, like I would spend hours just reading like codec entries in Mass Effect. Like that's how fascinated I was by that world, just reading about different races and like their planets and stuff like that.
I
I
think
loved that kind of stuff.
Mass Effect got a lot of praise for that sort of thing because it was at a time when like that was a bigger deal because nobody else was doing it. Like you didn't have Overwatch where like
True.
where those sorts of things are more fleshed out. Like Mass Effect, yeah, maybe it was you could almost even say it was like maybe pandering or something, but like no one else was bothering to do it at the time. They did it first. Maybe not first, but they did it. They were early in. So like
Yes. Yeah.
sure,
I think
let them
honestly,
have some of it, you know?
I did have a kind of knee-jerk reaction to the article, maybe because it was from 2015.
hmm
But Andromeda pretty much ruined any goodwill I have for Mass Effect as a series or
Oh,
for
Mass
Yeah.
BioWare.
Effect doesn't come back. There's no Mass Effect 4. There's
Actually, it
no,
That
ruined any goodwill I have for BioWare. Mass Effect
I think
original
that's a
trilogy is still
separate I think
fantastic.
that's a separate story here. Right. Like I think Andromeda, the whole issue with Andromeda is separate from this. If
Yeah.
if
Oh
I
yeah,
get what
no,
you're
I'm
saying.
just saying there's not going to be another Mass Effect game
There's
after Andromeda.
I will
if
bet
one.
you money that there is going to be another Mass Effect game.
I doubt EA doesn't make games that don't make money, and Andromeda, the,
I mean,
Andromeda
I
lost.
hear rumors that there's going to be a remaster of the original
yeah,
trilogy,
at the very
and
least
if
we'll get
that,
the
I'm
remaster.
hyped.
Yeah, I think
But
that's likely. But Mass
but
Effect was already niche, and like,
I do believe that in the far future, I think we'll see Mass Effect come back. I think they're going to wait and let Andromeda evaporate from everyone's sort of memories. So there's not that much of a bad taste associated with Mass Effect because overall, like I know the ending with 3 and Andromeda like really put people over the edge, but like aside from
Yeah,
that, Mass Effect was absolutely revolutionary.
I was there in the trenches. I was hyped for Andromeda, and then it came out, and oh boy, still
Yeah,
haven't played it.
I mean BioWare like I don't even want to get into this, but I'm about to. They recently said that they're working on massive upheaval type changes to Anthem, and I'm just like, please, just
stop
stop.
wasting your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It's
no
not a
one's
game.
even playing it.
Anthem wasn't even a game. It was just an engine for making good-looking trailers.
And yeah, like I really think it's the wrong move here. Like they don't need to be they I wish BioWare would go back to their glory days. They like do what they're good at. They chased the trend here and it bit them hard, I think.
Nah, I
And
mean, yeah, it's the same way Fallout 76 did. Like,
yeah. But I mean, I would argue that Anthem's even more of a failure than Fallout 76 because no one's playing Anthem.
I would agree with that.
It's shocking to me that they still I feel like it's just stubbornness at this point that they're insisting. Maybe it's EA or something, but someone's insisting that they want to make Anthem a thing and no one wants it to be a thing.
I mean, part of it could be. Let me play devil's advocate here. They could feel like they've betrayed their player base, and that fixing the game is the only way to make up for that.
Sure, but I think in this particular case, like I think it would be smarter for BioWare to say shift off of Anthem, make a new like bread and butter RPG like they're good at.
I'm inclined to agree because I don't think there's any world in which Anthem gets better. But
Yeah, they'd have to completely remake the game, I think, like from the ground up.
I mean, that's what Final Fantasy 14 did.
That's true. That's very true.
So stranger things have happened.
Yeah. But
And we live in a world where No Man's Sky got redemption, so nothing
Yeah.
surprises me anymore.
it's still just a shame to me as I guess at this point I have to say an ex BioWare fan, which hurts to say, right? Like BioWare doesn't make anything that interests me now. Like I'm very much looking forward to the next Dragon Age, but I think their emphasis is on Anthem now, and Dragon Age is getting pushed to the back burner, which I feel like they should be doing the opposite.
Yeah, BioWare. It doesn't take much for a company to ruin all goodwill that the fans had for them. Look at Bethesda and Fallout 76. It took one stinker, and everyone is now taking that to
See,
demolish Bethesda.
I think
Fallout 76 was so much more than.
I was gonna say
It was
still think
the
Bethesda
boiling
has
over though.
I have no faith in Bethesda anymore.
I have no faith in them.
But I will not buy the next Elder Scrolls game. I don't know why I would. But Fallout 76 was so much more than one little mistake.
Yeah.
Like Fallout 76 was a bad game and I would have forgiven it immediately. But they didn't just make a bad game.
It was
They
kind
made
of
a bad
insulting,
game.
right?
They made it monetized extremely aggressively.
They
Yeah.
doubled down on their bad game.
Yeah.
No, but they were basically like, no, this is why this was offensive to me. They were like, we know this game is bad, but we know we're Bethesda, so we know you're going to give us money, so we're going to put this game out anyway. That's what it read like to me.
And I hate that Bethesda is like that because they have so much control over some of my favorite games. Like, they've really screwed up some stuff with Doom Eternal recently. I don't know if you guys saw any of this, but and I don't want to get into the technical bits of this too much, but they introduced de novo anti-cheat after the fact in Doom Eternal, and you had to have it in order to play single player. And there are people who don't want this is another kernel level driver for anti-cheat.
Yeah.
And while I know de novo is not a real popular name in among PC gamers, but I would rather have de novo probably than something made by Riot because it's just probably more competently made.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Vanguard works great.
There were reports of immediately there were reports of slowdown and stuff in the single player game, and people were just upset about it because they didn't agree to have this software installed on their computer when they bought the game. So
Yeah.
But it's actually getting removed. So I don't know. I feel like there's some internal battle going on all the time of id versus Bethesda, but I really don't like that they are burdened by having Bethesda as a publisher.
Yeah, I mean, I think all this goes to show that, especially in the gaming industry, nothing is concrete, Like someone who's on top, 10 years ago can be reviled 10 years later, right? Like everything's constantly in flux. Makes the future really kind of interesting to predict.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of funny because Bethesda really just it's the same issues people had with Skyrim, and then they just kind of compounded. Like eventually people did get upset that they were releasing buggy games that barely worked.
Well, see, before, Bethesda was special because they were the only ones who made games like this, right? And then everyone else started making games like this, and they didn't have the problems that Bethesda's games had, and then they were out of excuses.
Suddenly how do you get away with this?
Yeah.
I would still argue that nobody makes a game quite like Bethesda.
No, I agree with that.
Nobody's made a world quite as rich as Skyrim. However, there are several worlds that I would
I would argue that The Witcher 3 is, even without beating it, just based off what I've seen. But
you see, that's a possibility. I haven't played that yet. But my thought was that even though Breath of the Wild is a far more shallow world, I would much rather spend time in it. Breath of the Wild's Hyrule. Just even on an environmental storytelling level, it is more interesting to me than anything was in Skyrim.
Yeah, but I think.
However, I can't read every single book in,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you literally can, but
Yeah.
there aren't very many.
Yeah, I think when we get to the Breath of the Wild versus Skyrim comparisons, I feel like it's just apples and oranges.
Yeah, I think
they're
it's its own
completely
comparison
different.
largely,
Yeah.
but
a more apt comparison would be Skyrim versus Witcher 3, I think.
Yeah.
Or even Assassin's Creed at this point. Well, that's more debatable, but
No, I mean it would have to be another RPG, and I don't know. I just don't think that a lot of the focus that Skyrim has on like their world building is interesting and stuff, but it's a lot of tell don't show, which is not great world building,
Yeah.
and it's also a buggy mess. So like I just don't have the same respect I used to have for them. I do wish, and I'm so upset that people keep bringing this up. The fact that they're using the same engine game to game is not the problem. Like that upsets me so much when people are like, "Oh, looks like it's another game in the Morrowind engine." Like, yeah, that's fine. Every modern engine is built on Quake. It doesn't matter, guys. Like, it's it just doesn't matter. Like
A new engine
the
wouldn't
difference,
fix their problems
yeah,
automatically.
the difference between upgrading an engine and making a new engine are so small. Like Godot did not originally ship, I don't believe, with networked multiplayer. Yet it is a perfectly functional engine using its networked multiplayer system. So like, it is not the engine's fault that the multiplayer in Fallout 76 is buggy. It's just not. Well, I mean, it is the Fallout 76 engine's fault, but it's not the fact that they were like updating an older engine. Like that's just not how engine development works. It's all iterative. So
Hmm.
maybe they need to go back and do a huge rewrite because none of the iterations they've done have been any good. But the fact that they're iterating on an engine is not the problem.
Yeah.
And it frustrates me to no end that all these all these pretend programmers are yelling at Bethesda when I should be the one yelling at Bethesda.
Well, there's no excuse for their bugs. It's just they're yelling about the wrong thing.
Yeah, exactly. But
I can't excuse their spaghetti code. It's not that the engine's bad. It's because Bethesda's spaghetti code is bad.
Maybe. I haven't read their code base. I don't know enough about what they're working with, but I do think that a lot of the stuff is kind of inexcusable.
It's a lot of let's let the modders will fix it.
Yeah, and that's super uncool.
Yeah. Back to what you said about like show don't tell. That's kind of part of the reason I'm really excited for Ghost of Tsushima, because it's really it seems like to me it's adopting that mantra really well.
Yeah, and I think that loops back, like our original intended topic here was dialogue, and I think
Yeah.
show don't tell is super important, because the first thing I thought, like when Mike texted us that he wanted to do dialogue, like the first thing that came to my mind was what is a man? A miserable little pile of secrets. Have at you.
Okay, so the first thing that came to my mind, did you guys ever play Heavy Rain?
No.
It's just like that awful, like, so it's a Quantic Dream game, and like all the dialogue is voiced by people who obviously like English isn't their first language, but the entire game's in English, and it's just very awkward. That's what immediately sprang to my mind. But yeah,
I think what is a man? That spiel from Dracula is weird, but I would also say that it's incredibly effective. Like, this is Dracula. He doesn't like you. He's going to kill you. That's your setup. Like, you're good. That character is fully established. He hates humanity. He's going to fight you.
Mhm.
You got everything you need to know about Dracula from what he looks like and this couple short lines. And I think Shovel Knight does it really effectively too, even though Shovel Knight's a much goofier. Excuse me. Even though Shovel Knight's a much goofier game.
Yeah.
The like little like one or the really short bit of dialogue before you fight the bosses gives them an enormous amount of character compared to something like the Robot Masters. And I would also say that it's more effective than like the Mega Man X dialogue because like they manage to in these very short spiels, they're like, this character had this problem and the Enchantress was able to convince them to work for her by solving this problem for them. Like,
what's interesting
they
is
were all actual characters.
all these games you're referencing have one thing in common, in that their dialogue was solely through text, right? Now we have text as well as voice, and I would say voice is actually like the primary way of delivering dialogue, and that introduces a whole new dimension of potential issues, but also like a whole dimension of actual potential. I think like a well-voiced game can do so much to elevate it. I think like.
Yeah, I think I use those. Well, actually, What is a Man is voiced.
Oh, right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
It's
Yeah,
extremely
you're
campy,
right.
but
Yeah. But like when I think of like, I don't think of like, so like Nathan Drake, right? Like Nolan North playing Nathan Drake. I feel like that. I don't want to say that like it's the performance of a lifetime or anything like that, but I want to say like he just fits that dialogue so well.
Oh,
It's like I don't even think about it twice, you know, like
and that
it's
game
like
just wouldn't
so
really
natural.
work. It wouldn't work with written dialogue, I feel like. Like,
Yeah. It's the delivery
yeah, it
that
really
makes
is.
that.
And I don't think I want to take a step and say like I think it's easier to pick out how good the writing is in a game when it's purely text. However, I don't think that it is poor writing to make something like Nathan Drake, because obviously that's not true. Like Nathan Drake,
Yeah, once you
Ellie,
bring a
and
voice element to it, you know, like it adds a whole other, you know,
right,
like
it's a totally different ball field.
exactly, yeah.
Because Nathan Drake, and I know I'm always talking about how I don't think The Last of Us is a masterpiece, but the writing for dialogue in The Last of Us is incredible.
Yeah, both Joel and Ellie are like Oscar level performances, I would argue. Like
Yeah, I would
they're
agree with that.
incredible. Yeah. Which oh
And
god, I'm
I
so excited for The Last of Us 2. Sorry.
we were
I had
talking
to
about
get
this
that in.
earlier, but Handsome Jack, some of the stuff he says, like I don't, his delivery was fantastic as well.
Yeah.
And just like some of the stuff he did and said could have come off as cringy if not for the fantastic performance, I think.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, for sure. Like if you just read that on a page, you'd be like, what is this nonsense? You
but
know, like-
Handsome Jack was a phenomenal character because his actions and his dialogue lined up so perfectly. Like he
Mhm.
actually did. And I watched a video essay on this recently. It was comparing the villains of Borderlands 3 to Handsome Jack and why Handsome Jack is so much more effective. And Handsome Jack just hates you. Like his entire goal is to stop you because you're the bad guy to him. Like, and that's such good. And his dialogue shows it. He's like, he thinks he's better than you the entire time. And like, yeah, like you are essentially a bandit, but Handsome Jack is one of my favorite villains of all time.
Yeah. His performance was definitely legendary.
I'm trying not to, I know it's an old game, but there are still moments in that game that I would not want to spoil for anyone. Like, it is rare that a goofy game like that can bring me so close to tears, but there's definitely a moment in Borderlands 2 where I was there.
Yeah. Well, Mike, did that satiate you?
Yeah, I'm satiated.
Okay.
Now I'm gonna
Alright.
complain more about dialogue.
Go for it.
So I've been playing through Borderlands 3, and oh boy, it's bad.
Yeah.
Dialogue
See-
and story wise, it's a stinker.
I never finished Borderlands 3, but like I guess if I could sum up my feelings for that game in one word, it'd be meh. Like I just didn't
It's
care.
a big old meh.
Yeah, I
I didn't think it
saw
was
people-
bad. I didn't think it was bad. I just didn't care.
The game's good. The story isn't.
Yeah, I saw that the antagonists were like live streamers or whatever.
Yes. God.
And I immediately was like, oh, I really wanted to play this game. I guess I don't get to. Like,
The game goes herder, fart joke, herder, we're live streamers every 3 minutes, and it really, really gets grating.
I remember how annoying that was. Yeah.
I mean, was it the
It's-
same writers? Because like it
no,
was.
it's not.
Okay, I was gonna say because it was
There's
Ashley
only
Birch's
one Handsome
brother.
Jack in Borderlands 2. Everyone's a Handsome Jack in Borderlands 3, and it's awful.
Yeah, that would be. Well, I also hear that like at a lot of points it doesn't really make sense why the antagonist hates you so much. I haven't actually played the game, but I have heard that.
So I have no idea why the antagonist hates us. Like I don't know why their motives are unknown to me.
How far into the game are you?
I'm like 5 or 6 chapters from the end. We're gonna
Okay, so far enough that you
Right.
should know what's going on with the antagonist, probably.
yeah, over halfway.
Like, yeah, I heard
which-
that like the girl's
means-
trying to become like a goddess or something.
something like that.
I mean, like I think their whole thing was that their persona was that they were like people, their fans regarded them as goddesses or something, if I remember right.
gods and goddesses. Ugh.
And I also
Everywhere,
just
like,
never like Handsome Jack scared me. He was a little not like shaking in my seat scared, but like he was an intimidating villain. He
Yeah,
had
something
a lot of
not-
power.
he had
Yeah.
a lot going for him.
And like
Exactly.
just looking at the design of the twins, they look like punks that I could punch in the nose. Like
Going back to your discussion about like show tell, not show.
Show not
There
tell,
are
you mean?
show not tell. There are so many occasions where instead of like making it implied that they're awful, they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, here you're locked in place," while they completely murder a character just right in front of you. You can't do anything, even though you're in the same room. Like, it just feels like a cop out. Everything is just like a cop out or a plot convenience,
Yeah.
and I just can't.
Yeah, and that sucks.
Don't get me started on
I don't
Eden
understand
6.
why they wouldn't have kept the Borderlands 2 writers, because like I know what I said about the Borderlands 2 writing and how it didn't age well, but like I don't know. I feel like they could have adapted.
Yeah.
You know, they could have seen that credit. They were not bad writers by any means. They were excellent in my opinion. And yeah, it's a shame that they didn't have more of them back.
Like, don't get me started on Eden 6. The game's pacing is awful. The first, like, few hours you're going from planet to planet, and then you get to Eden 6 and you're on Eden 6 for 4 hours. 4 hours!
That doesn't sound very fun.
It was not. It's a giant swamp. Every other planet you were
God.
in and out of in, like, an hour or two. This was 3 hours of going back and having to deal with the same exact enemies for 4 hours. It's not fun. It's
Yeah, I
not
mean,
a good arc.
You weren't planet hopping in Borderlands 2, but I don't remember staying in any one area for more than like 40 minutes to an hour.
Yeah. Like,
This-
you just got so tired of this sprawling area because everything looks the same.
Yeah, that was my beef with Borderlands 1. That's actually why I've never finished it, is because I feel like every area in the entire game looks the same.
Like, take me back to, and then you just go right back to, like, Pandora. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like, this might be a separate topic, but I just wanted to touch on the point that in today's day and age, everyone wants to bring back everything. You know, like, but I think sometimes it's okay to just leave things in the past, right? Like, I think Borderlands 2 was a product of its time, and it was great back then, but like, it does not belong right now, in my opinion.
It was not a
Right?
good
Like, I
story.
think Borderlands is one of those things they should have just moved on from. But like, you know, how everything is, like, everything has to come back now. Like, literally everything. We can't leave anything behind. And I think that's speaks to a larger problem with like our entertainment culture as a whole. But like, I think Borderlands 3 being kind of meh is a product of that.
Speak for yourself. I'm buying that Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake.
Yeah, no,
People are. So I actually never played those Tony Hawk games, so I'm actually kind of looking forward to trying them for the first time.
Oh my god. I had to start emulating Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 because my mom sold my copy when I was a kid, and I'm still not over it,
Why
but
would
whatever.
you do that?
I'm not getting into it on the podcast. I'm still
Okay.
mad though. But God, I grew up like those games were so formative for me in like music tastes. Like I'd be down to talk about. Actually, that might be my game I'm talking about for now. Do we want to switch over to that?
We have been. Mike's
We
been talking about
have-
Borderlands
this is-
3.
I'm ranting about Borderlands 3.
Oh. Okay. Well, the game I've been playing this week is Tony Hawk Pro Skater,
The original.
the original, and I love those games. I've watched countless video essays about them. I would say that they were very, very formative in my music tastes. Like I don't think I would like ska if not for Tony Hawk Pro Skater. And I only ever had the first one, but my cousin had a bunch of them, and it's just like they really captured like the skate punk attitude and stuff. Like the stuff you're collecting is VHS tapes. Like it's really
very
like,
90s.
yeah, they captured the whole culture. Like I think some of the later games had like spray paint, like graffiti mechanics and stuff. But like the first one is just like it's like it's almost like dropping you into something the size of a Super Mario 64 level, but instead of you have collectibles to find, but you also like are graded on how cool you look while you do it. And I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like there's so much cool stuff you can do. There are like secrets to find. Like it's really designed like a 3D platformer in a lot of ways. Like, but you have to do tricks and stuff to increase your speed and like get up to certain places. And there are things that are actually genuinely secrets that you have to find, and those are really cool. And you have to like find so many VHS tapes to get to the next level. Like it's really a 3D platformer, but then it's also a skating game.
That's exciting. Yeah, like I said, I missed this the first time around somehow. It's a big blind spot in my gaming history. But I do think it's exciting that, like, from what I've seen, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 is like one of the highest rated games of all time.
Oh yeah,
So-
it is. It is from what I've heard, like just a straight up improvement on the original in every way.
Oh, you haven't played the second?
I have never played the second.
Wow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that one's got like the same like Metacritic scores like Ocarina of Time or something crazy like that.
Yeah, I mean they're very good games. Like they're obviously I don't care about skating at all, and I love them. Like
Yeah, I
Tony-
really don't know anything about skating, but just the pedigree of this game is what's drawing me to it.
and I think it's funny because like if not for Tony Hawk Pro Skater, I wouldn't know who Tony Hawk was. Like
I don't know about that. Everyone's heard of Tony Hawk.
this is how I learned who he was.
Okay.
I think he was in a Sweet Life of Zack and Cody episode. I might have learned who he was there, but like
I think he was in a Rocket Power episode. Did you ever watch Rocket Power?
nah, I think I was slightly too young for Rocket Power.
Rocket
But anyway-
Power is all about skating.
Yeah. No, I've seen an episode or two, but I never watched Rocket Power.
Yeah.
I know the whole woogity 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 thing.
Woogity woogity woogity.
But like yeah, I mean yeah. And like the developers I guess could skateboard and stuff, the Tony Hawk Pro Skater developers, and they like really understood the culture and stuff.
That's cool.
And I believe Tony Hawk himself like was playing the prototypes the whole time too. Like that was one of the agreements to get his name attached was that like he wanted to help work on the game.
Yeah.
And
So-
yeah, I don't know him, but he sounds like a classy dude. So
So this is like a ground up remake, much in the line of like, Shadow of the Colossus or whatever.
yeah, and I'm a little worried about it because like I don't want them to change the physics at all. That would
Oh, I don't think they would.
because well they've done a ton like Tony Hawk Pro Skater games happened for a long time and
And they sucked
I'm-
after 2, right?
no, I think they sucked after 3.
Hmm.
I don't think 3 was. I think 3 was like largely panned for not being as interesting as 2. Like it just didn't add as much,
Hmm.
but it was still a good game and got good reviews. It just like they didn't add to it the same way they did, but they didn't iterate nearly as strongly between 2 and 3 as they did between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
But then they started doing Tony Hawk's Underground and like it really was like once the graphics got better, they started making the physics more realistic. At least that's what it looked like to me from the outside. And suddenly it just wasn't interesting anymore. And there have been a ton of games like Skate. I don't think people liked too much. And
Yeah, Skate tried to replace Pro Skater, and I don't think they succeeded.
I'm actually a little bummed. Not bummed, but the Tony Hawk Pro Skater remake is going to probably cannibalize a lot of sales for an indie game I've been kind of interested in for a long time called Skatebird, which was just trying to be a really goofy, like, hey, people don't make these Tony Hawk games anymore. Somebody needs to. And
Yeah, that's probably gonna kill it.
yeah, that'll make me really sad because there was a ton of I'm still gonna buy this game, but there was a ton of passion in it.
Mm.
And
When are these remakes coming out again?
I have no idea. They were just announced recently. And the most
Yeah.
important thing that they announced, in my opinion, is that they were getting the songs back. At least most of them.
Yeah, I know that's like an integral part to the experience. So
Oh,
check
speaking
it
of,
out.
speaking of games that are maybe coming back, I've heard rumors of a Scott Pilgrim versus the World re-release to coincide with the 10-year anniversary of the movie later this year. Which would be interesting because that's one of the games that have been lost to time because of licensing issues. You cannot buy the original anywhere anymore. You would have to buy a console that already has it installed on eBay or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it comes back.
And it's an actually good game. It was like the first good movie game I ever played. I still have it installed on my PS3.
Nice.
Yeah. But that'll do it for me.
All right, I guess I'll round us off here. I've been playing Endless Space 2. So this is a sort of continuation of my search for a 4X game to capture my imagination. And I mentioned last week I think I dabbled with it a little bit, but I put several more hours into it. And it really clicked with me. I'm really enjoying it. Still, I don't want to. Obviously, I've still only scratched the surface because I haven't even completed my full game yet. But I'm enjoying how all the various systems intermingle. And I took your recommendation, Mike. You recommended I play as the Sophons, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, they're the most traditional 4X faction.
Yes, very science based. I will say though that my civilization was bumped up right against a very aggressive civilization, the Leapers,
Oh yeah.
and they immediately declared war on me and just took a few of my systems. And so most of my game, I've been embroiled in this war with the Leapers, which kind of sucks because I don't think that's the intended play style of the Sophons.
Yeah, the Sophons are more diplomatic and research based.
Right? Yeah.
But you still go to war, and when you do go to war, you usually have the better technology.
But I do think it's interesting that like their combat system. I think it's interesting how like you can order your fleets into like certain formations, and that actually impacts the flow of the battle. And it impacts if you win or not, like depending on where your fleet is positioned. I think that's a very interesting mechanic that I really wasn't expecting anything like going in, and it gives the combat like much more depth than something like Civilization, for example. So that's really cool. And I'm enjoying like discovering all the various systems, like the global market, and like how you can buy and sell things in the global exchange, and like how the government system works, and how there's like different like political factions that can gain power based off the policies you pass, and like there's elections, and the power of those parties can shift based off the results of those elections, which in turns affects your empire in different ways. And I think all of that gelling together is really cool. And I guess I'm just excited to experience more of it. I feel like I've still barely scratched the surface, but there's just so much to each of these 4X strategy games. But yeah, that's what I've been playing. Do you have any thoughts on Endless Space 2, Mike?
I mean, I played maybe once or twice through Endless Space. I've played a lot more Endless Space 1, but Endless Space 2 introduced unique colonization mechanics for each of the factions. So the Sophons
really?
are the only ones who do the traditional send a colony ship out to the planet, colonize.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's interesting to me, because that's all I've experienced. I'm curious to see what else there is.
That's why I said the Sophons are the more traditional. Like, one of them has to spread roots and expands really slow because they have to route their way to the next system.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I finished my game of Sophons, they had only expanded to 3 systems.
Yeah, my civ is pretty small compared to like most of the other civs I met in the game. So I guess it's good to hear that's by design, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been having a good time. And I think that'll do it for us this week. I'm personally very excited for next week. I think by the time we record next week's episode, we'll have a good idea of what's going on with PlayStation 5. And I'm sure I sure am excited to talk about what we see there. But for now, thank you, Connor and Mike.
Yeah, man, anytime.
You can follow us at @PodcastGameTalk on Twitter. Please click the link in the description of this podcast to follow our Discord. Please like, rate, and review us on any podcast service you may use. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.